The night the mafia boss' dead wife knocked on the door, I almost didn't open it. Because in that house, opening the wrong door could get you killed. The body of a woman was carried out of SEO Mansion on a Tuesday morning. Amara Okafor watched from the kitchen window, hands still wet from washing dishes, heart doing something uncomfortable in her chest. She had only been working in the mansion for 6 days. She already knew this was not a normal house. The ambulance moved slowly, no sirens, no urgency. Like even the emergency workers understood that in this neighborhood you did not make noise. You did not draw attention, you folded yourself small and you moved quietly. Amara dried her hands on her apron and turned back to the sink. Mrs. Patel, the head housekeeper, walked into the kitchen and placed a cup of tea on the counter without a word. Amara looked at her. "Don't," Mrs. Patel said. Amara had not even opened her mouth yet. "Don't ask, don't wonder, don't look at things that don't need to be looked at." Mrs. Patel picked up her clipboard and walked out, finished the dishes and cleaned the east corridor. "Stay away from the second floor." Amara stared at the door she left through. Then she turned back to the sink. She needed this job. She needed the money. Her father had died 8 months ago in Lagos and left behind a debt so large it had followed Amara across an ocean to South Korea, where she had been studying hospitality management on a scholarship before everything fell apart. She could not afford curiosity, so she finished the dishes. She cleaned the east corridor. She stayed away from the second floor. On day 7, she met Jin Seo-hyun for the first time. She was on her knees polishing the marble floor in the main entrance hall when she heard the front door open. She did not look up. She had been told, "Eyes down when Mr. Seo walks through." She kept polishing. 2 black shoes stopped directly in front of her. She could see the hem of a dark suit, perfectly pressed, not a single crease. Silence. Amara kept her eyes down and kept her hand moving in slow circles on the marble. "You missed a spot." His voice was low, deep, Korean accent with something measured underneath it, like a man who had trained himself to take up exactly as much space as he intended, and not 1 inch more. Amara stopped polishing. She looked up slowly. Jin Seo-hyun was tall, broad-shouldered, the kind of face that would be beautiful if it ever relaxed. Strong jaw, sharp eyes that were watching her with the flat patience of someone who had all the time in the world and none of it for nonsense. He was pointing at a small dull circle 2 feet to her left. Amara looked at it. She looked back at him. "I would have gotten to it," she said. The words came out before she could stop them. Something moved across Jin's face. Too fast to name. He looked at her for a moment longer than felt comfortable, like he was calculating something, and then he walked past her toward the staircase without another word. Amara exhaled slowly. She moved to the spot he had pointed at and polished it. Her hands were shaking slightly. She told herself it was because she was scared of losing her job. She did not examine the other reason too closely. If you are already hooked on this story, hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss a new one. Drop a comment. Tell me, do you trust this boss or not? 3 weeks in, Amara had built herself a map of the mansion's rules. Rule 1. The 3 rooms on the second floor east wing stayed locked. Always. Even Mrs. Patel did not have the keys. Rule 2. Nobody mentioned the woman in the portrait. The portrait hung at the top of the staircase. A Korean woman with sharp cheekbones and dark eyes that followed you as you walked past. Elegant, beautiful, a small smile on her face like she was keeping a secret she found amusing. Eleanor Seo, the dead wife. Her perfume still lived in the curtains of the east corridor. Her shoes, 12 pairs, all arranged perfectly, sat behind the glass cabinet in the main sitting room like a display in a museum. Her reading glasses were folded on the side table in the library. Her favourite Korean drama was still saved at episode 7 on the living room television. Nobody touched any of it. Nobody explained any of it. Rule 3. Park Dae-jung, Jin's right-hand man, watched Amara too carefully. He was a thick man. Quiet in a way that felt calculating rather than peaceful. Every time Amara entered a room, his eyes found her immediately, not with interest, with assessment, like he was deciding something about her on an ongoing basis and had not reached his conclusion yet. It made her skin feel tight. It was a Thursday evening when the first strange thing happened. Amara was replacing the fresh flowers in the east corridor, white lilies, Mrs. Patel's instructions, always white lilies, when she heard it, footsteps, soft, slow, coming from behind the locked door at the end of the corridor. Amara froze. She stood still and listened. The footsteps moved across the floor behind the door, paused, then moved back and forth, like someone pacing. Amara set the flowers down very carefully and took 1 step toward the door. "Amara." She spun around. Park Dae-jung was standing at the end of the corridor, both hands in his pockets, looking at her with those flat, calculating eyes. "Mrs. Patel needs you in the kitchen," he said. He did not move. He just watched her. Amara picked up the flowers and walked toward him. As she passed him, he turned slowly to keep her in his line of sight. like a camera rotating on a mount. She did not look back, but her heart was beating hard all the way to the kitchen. That night, lying on her narrow bed in the staff quarters, Amara stared at the ceiling. Footsteps behind a locked door. A dead woman's perfume still living in the curtains. A husband who showed no grief, only control. She told herself to leave it alone. She told herself she was here for money, not mystery. She fell asleep telling herself that. The next morning, she walked into the library with fresh linens for the bookshelf cushions and stopped dead. Jin Seo-hyun was standing at the window with his back to her, holding a glass of water and staring out at the garden below. He had not heard her come in. Amara stood very still. She could leave, quietly, come back later, but then she saw what was in his other hand, a photograph, small, worn at the edges from handling. He was holding it the way people hold things they cannot put down even when they want to. He turned his head slightly, and she saw his face from the side. It was the first time Amara had seen something real on it. He looked exhausted, not tired from lack of sleep, tired from something that lived much deeper than sleep could reach. Then he registered her presence. His face closed immediately, like a door shutting. He turned fully and looked at her. Amara held up the linens. "I can come back," she said. "Finish your work," Jin said. He put the photograph face down on the bookshelf, picked up a file from the desk, and sat down like the moment at the window had never happened. Amara moved to the cushions and began replacing the covers. The room was very quiet. She could feel him on the other side of it, not looking at her, or at least not obviously looking at her, but aware of her the way you are aware of something standing too close. Her breathing was doing something she did not appreciate. She focused on the cushions. "You're not from Seoul," Jin said suddenly. Amara looked up. He was reading the file. Not looking at her. "No," she said. "Nigeria. Lagos. Why Seoul? Scholarship. Hospitality management." She paused. The scholarship ended. The job here came up. Silence. "You speak Korean well," he said. "I studied hard," she said. Another silence. Longer this time. "You're not afraid of me," Jin said. It was not a question. He said it like a man noting down an observation. Amara considered lying. "I'm afraid of plenty of things," she said instead. "You're just not at the top of the list right now." Jin looked up from the file. His eyes held hers for 3 full seconds. Amara's heart did something ridiculous. Then he looked back down at the file. "Finish your work," he said again, but the corner of his mouth, just the very corner, moved. Amara turned back to the cushions and pressed her lips together. She was in trouble. It was 4 weeks into her time at the mansion. The house was asleep. The staff quarters were quiet. Even the soul traffic outside the high walls had dropped to almost nothing. Amara was awake. She had been awake for an hour, lying in the dark, listening to the house breathe. Old buildings talked at night. Creaks, shifts, the long exhale of settling foundations. She had gotten used to the mansion's sounds. This was not a sound she recognized. Soft, deliberate, knock, knock, knock. She sat up. The sound was coming from outside, not inside the house. Someone at the side entrance, the small door near the kitchen that the staff used. Amara checked her phone. 12:07 a.m. She sat there and waited. Knock, knock, knock. Harder this time. More urgent. Amara got up, pulled on her cardigan, moved through the dark kitchen without turning on the lights, guided by the blue glow coming under the door crack. She unlocked the bolt. She opened the door. The woman standing outside was thin, pale under the yellow security light. Her clothes were expensive but dirty, like she had been wearing them for days. Her dark hair was damp. Her eyes were wide and moving constantly, checking the garden behind her, the walls, the shadows. Amara stared at her. The woman grabbed Amara's arm. "Please," she whispered. Her Korean was fast and shaking. "Let me in, before he sees me." Amara looked past her into the dark garden. Nothing moved. She looked back at the woman's face. The sharp cheekbones. The dark eyes. Amara's throat went dry. She knew this face. She had been walking past it on the staircase wall every single day for 4 weeks. "You're—" Amara started. Inside, the woman cut her off. "Please, I'll explain everything. Just get me inside." Amara stepped back. The woman moved past her into the kitchen. Amara closed the door and locked it. Her hands were not steady. "Wait, are you seeing what I'm seeing? This woman is supposed to be dead. Hit the like button if this story has you shook right now. Subscribe and drop a comment. Is this really Eleanor or not?" Amara turned on the small counter light. Just enough to see by, not enough to be seen from outside. The woman was sitting at the kitchen table, both hands flat on the surface, breathing carefully like someone managing pain. Amara sat across from her and looked at her properly. She was real. Not a ghost. There was a cut on her left hand, dry now but recent. Her wrists were thin in a way that spoke of weeks without proper food, but her eyes were sharp, present, intelligent. "You're Eleanor Seo," Amara said. The woman looked at her steadily. "Yes," she said. "They said you were dead. I know what they said." Amara clasped her hands on the table. "What happened to you?" she asked. Eleanor looked at the door behind Amara first, then at the ceiling, listening for movement upstairs. Then back at Amara. He locked me away, Eleanor said, 7 months ago. There's a facility, private, outside the city. He has doctors there who answer to him. Not to any hospital board. He had me committed. She said the word like it tasted like poison. Told everyone I died. Announced it. Had a ceremony. A short, humourless sound came from her throat. I attended my own funeral from behind a barred window. Amara stared at her. Why? Amara said. Eleanor's jaw tightened. Because I found something, she said. Documents, transactions. The SEO family has been moving money through shell companies in Lagos, Dubai and Hong Kong. I don't just mean business money. I mean the kind of money that has blood underneath it. She looked at Amara directly. Your country. Nigeria. There are people there connected to what the SEO family does. When I found the documents, I made copies. I told CEO Hune I was going to take them to the authorities. Silence settled over the kitchen like a heavy cloth. And 2 days later I was in that facility, Eleanor said quietly. Amara sat with that for a moment. How did you get out? She asked. One of the facility nurses. Young woman, newer staff member, a small tired smile. She didn't know who I was. She only knew I was a patient being held without any visible medical reason. She helped me get out 3 days ago. 3 days? Amara looked at her clothes. Where have you been? Moving carefully, Eleanor said. I couldn't go to anyone we knew. His reach in Seoul is very long. I needed somewhere unexpected. I watched the house for 2 days. I saw you, the new maid, African girl. I thought... She paused. I thought you might be the one person in that house who owed him nothing. Amara looked at her for a long time. Something about the story sat correctly. The details had weight. The emotions were real. But something else, small, at the back of Amara's mind, not loud enough to name yet, was paying attention to the parts of the story Eleanor had not told. You can stay in my room tonight, Amara said. Tomorrow we think about the next step. Eleanor exhaled. The relief on her face was genuine. Thank you, she said softly. Amara nodded. She stood up and led Eleanor through the dark kitchen toward the staff quarters. The next morning, Jin called Amara into his office. She had been expecting it. She had prepared her face on the walk over, blank, steady, a maid who had no secrets and no extra people sleeping in her room. Jin's office was all dark wood and glass, bookshelves floor to ceiling. A desk that was never messy but always clearly worked on. He was standing at the window again when she entered, which seemed to be where he went when he was thinking hard about something. He turned when she came in. Close the door, he said. She closed it. He was looking at her in that way he had. Measuring, calculating. But this morning there was something underneath it that she couldn't quite name. Something tighter. The side entrance security camera, he said, stopped recording at midnight last night. 40 minutes of blank footage. Amara held his gaze. Cameras malfunction sometimes, she said. Not in this house, Jin said. The air in the room felt thin. He walked toward her slowly. Not threatening, but deliberate. Each step considered. He stopped close enough that Amara had to work to keep her breathing normal. He looked at her face like he was reading a document. If someone came into this house last night, he said quietly, that would be a matter of security. My security. And anyone involved, regardless of their intentions, would be in a very dangerous position. Amara looked straight back at him. I understand, she said. Do you? He said. His voice was low. His eyes had not left hers. Amara's heartbeat was doing things she was going to have to address privately later. Is there something specific you're asking me? She said. A pause. Something shifted in Jin's expression, not anger, something closer to frustration, as if he wanted her to give him something and she wasn't giving it, and he could not decide whether to respect that or press harder. He stepped back. No, he said. You can go. Amara turned and walked to the door. Amara. She stopped. Did not turn around. Be careful, Jin said. In this house. In general. A beat. There are things here that are more dangerous than they look. She turned her head slightly. I know, she said. I'm getting a clearer picture every day. She left. In her room, Eleanor was sitting on the floor with her back against the bed, going through something on Amara's phone. She had asked to use it to access a private email account. Somewhere, she said she had sent copies of the documents she found. She looked up when Amara came in. Well? Eleanor asked. He's suspicious, Amara said. We need to move faster. Eleanor nodded. The documents are in the email. If we can get them to a journalist, there's one. Park Gina at the Seoul Tribune. She's been investigating the SEO family for 2 years. How do you know that? Amara asked. Eleanor paused. I kept track, she said. From inside the facility, the nurse helped me access news sometimes. Amara sat on the edge of the bed and looked at her. Something was scratching at the back of her mind again. Louder now. Eleanor, she said carefully, the cut on your hand. Which hand did you say you write with? Eleanor looked at her left hand, the one with the cut. Left, she said. Why? Amara nodded slowly. No reason, she said. Let me see what I can find out about Park Gina. Something is off. Can you feel it? If this story has you on edge right now, drop a comment and tell me, what do you think Amara just noticed? Like and subscribe so you get part 2 the second it drops. Amara did not sleep that night. She lay in the dark listening to Eleanor breathe on the floor beside her and turned the small detail over and over in her mind. The cut on Eleanor's left hand. The left hand Eleanor said she wrote with. Amara had cleaned this house for 4 weeks. She had dusted the library, arranged the desk, replaced the supplies in the writing cabinet. Every pen in Eleanor Seo's designated writing desk was arranged on the right side, every single one. The reading glasses left on the side table. The left arm was slightly stretched, the way glasses sit on a person's face when the right ear is higher than the left. A left-handed person would not wear glasses that way. The adjustment would be on the opposite side. It was small, maybe nothing. But Amara's father had raised her with one instruction that he repeated her whole life. Small lies live inside big lies. Find the small one first. She got up carefully, moved out of the room, took her phone from the desk before she left, the phone Eleanor had been using. In the bathroom down the corridor, Amara opened the email account Eleanor had accessed. She found the sent emails. She found the documents. She opened the first one. Then she stopped. She read it again. The document was a financial transaction record, detailed, real-looking. But Amara had studied 2 years of hospitality management with a minor in business administration before her scholarship was cut. She had taken 6 months of financial document processing as part of her coursework. These documents had the right headings, the right format, but the account numbers were structured incorrectly for the dates listed. Korean banking account formats changed in a specific regulatory window 3 years ago. The format in these documents matched the old structure, but the dates on the transactions were from 2 years ago, after the change. Someone had made these documents, someone who knew enough to be convincing, but not enough to be perfect. Amara put the phone down. She sat on the edge of the bathtub. She thought about Eleanor's story, the facility, the nurse, 3 days moving through Seoul, coming to the mansion, choosing Amara specifically. She thought about the cameras cutting out at exactly midnight. Not malfunctioning, cut. Someone had cut the cameras from inside the network, someone who had access to the mansion's security system. Amara stood up. She went back to the room. She looked at Eleanor sleeping on the floor. Then she did what she should have done on day 1. She went looking for what was behind the locked door. The key was in the one place Amara had cleaned, but never truly looked at. The decorative bowl on the hall table outside the master bedroom. Under the stones used for decoration. A small silver key. She had dusted that bowl 12 times. She picked up the key and walked to the east wing. The lock turned on the second try. She pushed the door open. The room inside was not a memorial. It was an office. A working office, papers on the desk, a second monitor running, files stacked in organized piles, and on the wall, photographs, documents, printouts, connected with lines in red and blue marker, an investigation board. Amara stepped inside and moved closer. The photographs showed people. Korean men, Nigerian men, locations, Lagos, Hong Kong, Dubai, Seoul, transactions, names. She leaned in and looked at the name at the center of the board. Park Dae-jung, Jin's lieutenant, not Jin. Park Dae-jung was at the center of everything. The money movements, the shell companies, the connections across multiple countries. And in the corner of the board, pinned carefully, was a photograph of a woman Amara recognized. She was looking at herself from the photograph. She stumbled back. The photograph was of her, taken before she came to Seoul, in Lagos. At the bank where her father's debt records were held, someone had been watching her before she ever set foot in this house. A sound behind her. She spun around. Jin was standing in the doorway. He was fully dressed despite the hour. He had not been sleeping either. He looked at her standing in the middle of the investigation room, key in her hand, photograph in the other. He did not look surprised. He looked like a man who had been waiting for exactly this moment and was not sure whether he was relieved or sorry it had come. "Sit down, Amara," he said quietly. Amara did not sit down. She stood in the middle of the room and held up the photograph of herself. "Explain this," she said. Jin stepped inside the room. He did not come close to her. He moved to the desk and stood beside it, giving her space, which she noticed because it was deliberate. "Your father," he said, "was not in debt to a bank." Amara stared at him. "He was in debt to Park Dae-jung," Jin said. "Your father stumbled onto information about Park's operation in Lagos 6 years ago. Park offered him a deal silence, or debt. Your father chose debt because debt felt safer than the alternative." Jin paused. "When your father died, the debt transferred. To you. That's not how legal debt works, but Park does not operate in legal frameworks." The room was very quiet. "The scholarship that brought you to Seoul," Jin said. "Park arranged it. He wanted you here. Controllable. Close. Why?" Amara's voice was steady. She was proud of that. Because your father kept copies of what he found. Documents of Park's operation in Nigeria, real ones, not the forgeries the woman in your room is carrying. Jin looked at her steadily. Your father hid them in Lagos before he died. Park believes you know where they are. He's been watching you for 8 months, trying to find out. Amara thought about the woman sleeping on the floor of her room. Eleanor, she said. Her name is Miso, Jin said. She works for Park. She's done this before, gone into a situation, built trust, extracted information. She's very good at it. The real Eleanor, Amara said. Jin was quiet for a moment. Eleanor died 4 months after our marriage, he said. A real illness. Nothing suspicious. She was sick before I met her, and she never told me how sick. Something moved through his face, not performed grief. Something older and quieter than that. What happened to her was real. What Park has done with her memory, using it, building a story around it to manipulate people, that part is his. Amara set the photograph down on the desk. Why is my photograph on your board? She said. Because when I found out Park had brought you here, Jin said, I needed to understand what he was planning before I moved against him. He paused. And because I needed to know if you were involved willingly. And? Amara said. You're not, he said. I know that now. They looked at each other across the room. Amara's heart was doing something enormous and inconvenient. You could have told me, she said. I couldn't risk Park finding out I knew, he said. He has eyes in this house. If I warned you and you acted differently around Miso, he would know. So you let me walk into it, she said. I was watching every second, he said. You were never in danger I couldn't reach. That should have made her angry. Somehow it did not make her as angry as it should have. The cameras last night, she said. You cut them. To see what would happen, he said. To see if you would come to me or if you would run with her. You were testing me. I was choosing whether to trust you. A long silence. And, she said, you went looking for the truth on your own, he said. Instead of running and instead of coming to me, that told me everything. Amara looked at the investigation board, all those names and places and lines connecting them. Her father's name was there too, in the bottom corner, small. But there, my father, she said, his documents, if we can get them, Jin said, they end Park, everything he's built, everything he's done. He paused. And your debt, the real one, the one he holds over you, disappears. Amara turned to look at him. He was watching her, the way he always watched her, with that careful attention that felt like being understood and not quite knowing how to handle it. Why do you care, she said, about my debt, about any of this for me specifically? Jin was quiet for a moment. Park has been in my house for 12 years, he said. Using my name, using my family's structure, moving his operation through everything I built. I trusted him, and he used that trust to do things I would never allow. The quietness in his voice was the most dangerous kind, not loud anger, but the decision that sits underneath it. I want him gone. I want everything he touched dismantled. He looked at Amara. And I don't want anyone else he used to go down with him. Amara looked at him for a long time. She thought about the photograph he had been holding in the library. Worn at the edges from handling, the real grief underneath the stone face. She thought about the way he stood at the window every morning. She thought about the corner of his mouth that had moved just barely the day she talked back to him on the floor. Okay, she said. Jin looked at her. Okay, he said. I'll help you, she said. But we do this together. You don't move without telling me. You don't decide things for me. Equal information. Something shifted in his face. It was not the corner of his mouth this time. It was more than that. He nodded once. Equal, he said. We are not done. This is about to explode. If you are riding with Amara and Jin right now, hit that subscribe button so you catch the conclusion. Drop a comment. Do you think they're going to make it out? And what's going to happen when Miso wakes up and realizes Amara knows everything? They walked back to Amara's room together. Jin stood to the side of the doorway. Amara went in. Miso was awake. She was sitting on the bed. She had moved herself from the floor at some point, and she was holding Amara's phone. Her face when she saw Amara was arranged into tired gratitude. But her eyes did a fast calculation when she saw what was in Amara's. You found something, Miso said. Your documents are forged, Amara said simply. The account number formats don't match the dates. You're 3 years behind on Korean banking regulation changes. Miso's face did not panic. She adjusted. That fast, smooth adjustment told Amara everything about how practiced this woman was. Amara, Miso started. Don't, Amara said. I'm not angry. I just want to know who sent you. Miso looked at her, then passed her at the door. Jin stepped into the doorway. Miso's face changed completely. For the first time, something real appeared on it, and what appeared was fear. Dae-young, Jin said. He sent you. Miso said nothing. It was the silence of someone deciding what surrender looks like. Here is what happens now, Jin said. His voice was very calm, quiet, the kind of quiet that had consequences. You call Park. You tell him Amara confirmed the documents are in Lagos. You tell him she's agreed to get them. You give him the location we're going to give you. He paused. You do that and you leave Seoul tonight with enough money to go wherever Park cannot follow. You don't do that, I'll do it, Miso said. She said it fast. Fast enough that there had been no actual decision involved. The decision had already been made the moment she saw Jin's face. Park Dae-jung arrived at the drop location 3 hours later. A private lot on the edge of Mapo, where the city thinned out and the dark was heavier. He came with 2 men because Park was not a fool, but he came because greed is the leak in every careful man's armour. He was expecting Amara. He was not expecting Jin. The look on Park's face when Jin stepped out of the dark was something Amara watched from 15 feet away, and it was the look of a man whose longest-held secret had just walked toward him in a dark suit with 12 years of patience behind its eyes. Seo-hyun, Park started. Everything, Jin said. The accounts, the connections, the operations in Lagos, Hong Kong and Dubai, the names. He stopped 3 feet in front of his former lieutenant. I know all of it. You can't... The Nigerian documents were in Seoul the whole time, Jin said. Amara's father mailed them here 2 months before he died. He mailed them to the one address in Seoul he trusted, the SEO family legal office. My office. Jin paused. They've been sitting in a sealed envelope in my filing system for 8 months. Park's face went very still. My lawyers have them now, Jin said. And the Seoul Tribune, and 3 government agencies. He tilted his head slightly. You have about 40 minutes before the first calls start. The 2 men Park had brought with him looked at each other. They walked away. Park stood alone. He looked at Amara. She looked back at him. Your father, Park said, was a stubborn man. I know, Amara said. I got it from him. The arrest happened in the car on the way out of Mapo. Amara sat in the front seat of Jin's car in the aftermath and watched the city pass by outside the window. Seoul at 4 a.m. was a different city. Quieter. More honest. Jin was driving. He had not spoken since they left the lot. Amara looked at his hands on the wheel. 12 years, she said. Yes, he said. That's a long time to carry something. Yes. She turned to look at his face. The stone was still there. She didn't think it would ever fully leave. It had been built too long, but there were cracks in it now. Real ones. The kind that let light in rather than the kind that made things fall apart. Where are we going? She asked. I don't know, he said. And then, quieter, where do you want to go? Amara looked at his profile. Her heartbeat was doing the thing it had no business doing. I don't have to be anywhere until morning, she said. Something moved across Jin's face, not just the corner of his mouth this time. He drove in silence for another moment. Then he said, There's a place near Han River. They make jollof rice. Amara stared at him. Excuse me, she said. Korean-Nigerian fusion restaurant. Opens at 5. He kept his eyes on the road, but there was something different in his voice now, something that had been allowed out of the place he kept such things. The owner is from Abuja. She's been in Seoul 15 years. Amara looked at him for a long time. You found a Korean-Nigerian fusion restaurant, she said slowly. I found it 2 weeks ago, he said. She let that sit between them. 2 weeks ago, before any of tonight. Before Miso. Before the confrontation. He had found it and remembered it and held on to the information, and now at 4 a.m. he was offering it to her like it was a small thing when it was not a small thing at all. Okay, Amara said softly. Jin nodded once. The city passed by around them. Her hand was resting on the center console. His hand moved from the gear shift. He didn't grab her hand. He just rested his near hers, close enough that she could feel the warmth of it. Neither of them moved. The Han River appeared in the distance, silver in the early dark. That night, Amara Okafor opened a door for a woman she thought needed saving. She didn't know she was walking into the middle of something that had been moving long before she arrived. She didn't know the man everyone feared was carrying a grief so quiet it had no sound. She didn't know any of it. But then she found out, and she did not run. Some people call that foolishness. Amara called it home. The end. If this story held you from the first knock to the last line, hit subscribe. Share this with someone who needs a good story tonight. Drop a comment, team Amara and Jin. Because honestly, same. New story coming soon. Don't miss it.